if we go ahead and get started, okay? And again, if you need something else to eat, freshen up your drink, feel free. Before we get into this material, let me ask you to do something, if you would. Look to the person to your left. And look to the person on your right. Current statistics show that the person on your left or the person on your right will be diagnosed with cancer sometime in their lifetime, or both. And keep in mind that the person on your left and your right, they were both looking at you. And and these aren't just statistics. These are people we're talking about. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, if you have an acquaintance, not someone close to you, but an acquaintance that in the past or currently has been diagnosed with cancer, like a coworker, someone down the street, or maybe someone at church, if they've been diagnosed with cancer that you know of, just raise your hand. That's every hand. If someone close to you, a family member, a spouse, a parent, a child has been diagnosed, raise your hand. This is not just your family, this is my family too. My grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. My dad was diagnosed. 2 of my brothers had cancer, and I was diagnosed with cancer. So, and when you all have experienced this, you all know someone that has been diagnosed, and it's life-changing. It's life-changing. So here's the numbers. 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women are projected to get cancer sometime in their life. And we think it's just, an older person thing, but it's not. It's the leading cause of death from disease in U.S. children over 1 year of age. You've seen the commercials on TV, right? These young kids. This is heartbreaking. And here's one of the things that's so troubling about this. We spend about $100 billion a year on cancer research. $100 billion a year. But the rate of cancer is increasing globally. You know, if what we were doing was working, the numbers wouldn't be going up. And most of us have heard the quote from Einstein, the definition of insanity is continuing to do what you've always done, but expecting different results. The results we're getting are not good. And here's part of the problem. We think that, we're talking about cancer, but this is true for heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, hormonal issues, and so forth, but we're centering the talk about cancer. We tend to think that people get cancer and then they get sick, but the truth is they get sick and then get cancer. So a good definition, I think a very good definition of health is when you have all of your parts and all of your parts are working at 100%. That sounds like a pretty good general working definition. So what would you guess? How much loss of functioning could you have before you first start noticing symptoms? Would not really expect anybody to know this. So again, 0% functioning, that's death. 100% functioning, that's 100% health. Symptoms start at 60%. How your prostate functions, how your kidney functions, how your heart functions can decline to 60% before you start having mild intermittent symptoms. And that's not the time to start looking into these issues. So, and this is true with every aspect of your health. Your emotional health can slowly, gradually slide downhill without you realizing it before one day, you realize, or maybe your close friend says, I think you got some issues going on. The function of your central nervous system, which is your brain function, spinal cord function, can gradually slide downhill. This is something that we measure every day in the office. Nutrition, by the time you realize you have a nutritional deficiency, you have a diagnosable disorder. With fitness, in Hampton County, we don't often climb 2 or 3 flights of stairs, do we? But if you travel to Columbia or Atlanta and you have to travel a few flights of stairs, maybe you've experienced this. You get to the 3rd floor, you go, wow, I'm out of shape. I didn't realize. So your fitness level can slowly decrease. We get this, we understand this. And with rest too. Rest, that means downtime, but also sleep. It's called sleep hygiene. Can gradually slip away until you find yourself sleeping in the recliner for only 2 hours every night with the TV on. So this is not, how you feel is not a good definition of health. And I would like to say that since I know this, I've acted on this, but I did not. So I'm not up here to say, listen, do what I did. It's like, I made a lot of mistakes. I learned some things. I studied cancer in a very academic way in school. I diagnosed it under a microscope and on x-rays. But when I received the diagnosis, it got real. It got real very, very quick. So don't do what I did. Don't do what most people do. And don't have certain tests done that are relevant for you and then get shocked. And this is another thing that I hear in the office quite a lot. Well, it just runs in my family. It just runs in my family. I have no responsibility. It's just going to happen. Because, I read you the list of my family, and maybe that sounds a whole lot like your family. DNA plays a role, but it's very much, what the research shows is very much like a switch. Some people don't have a switch for cancer. With a very unhealthy lifestyle, you can make a switch. You can alter your DNA by your lifestyle. And if you did just kind of inherit a genetic predisposition, I've had some DNA testing done. I had no markers for cancer. But if you have like the BRCA2 gene for breast cancer, you can control whether it's turned on or turned off. So how can you make sure you do not turn on your cancer switch? It's the environment. The environment is what flips the switch. And it's your internal environment and your external environment. It's what's around you, what's on you, and what's in you. It's toxicity. Do you work in a large industrial plant and eat fish out of the Savannah River every night, live in a brand new home with all kinds of fire retardants and brand new paint on the wall, and that new car smell? You don't think that's healthy, do you? And I struggle with this presentation because each one of these topics is at least a 12-hour seminar. So if I talk quick, please listen quick. And if you feel like I'm just touching on the surface of some of these topics, I am, okay? So toxicity, diet and nutrition sufficiency, not just food, but the nutrients you need for the body to heal and repair and restore. Fitness, a sedentary lifestyle is going to make you more susceptible. Stress. Let me just show of hands again. Has anybody in this room experienced stress before? Okay, is this a real thing? It's an expression. Was 2 hands up? Is this a real thing? Can you worry yourself sick? Literally. I've done it. And so it's not stress, it's stress that's beyond your ability to cope. You have the ability to change your ability to cope with stress. And then the nervous system. The nervous system is really like the master chef. You can put all the good ingredients take out all the bad ingredients, but it's the nervous system that's the master chef that coordinates all of that stuff to get that immune system to respond appropriately, to regulate the hormones and on and on and on. So that's a real key point. So this is the answer to the question, what do doctors do when they get cancer? They take a multifaceted approach. This is called polytherapy. It's like when a general sees an enemy of force and he attacks it on every possible front. But when most people are diagnosed with cancer, they're given 3 options. Correct me if you think I'm wrong. It's happened before. It's chemo, radiation, or surgery, or some combination of that. And that's it. But in my journey, when I was given the diagnosis, there's a really, really difficult time between diagnosis and treatment plan. It's a very anxious time. You have no idea what to do. And you got to figure it out. And you can just outsource it and let one doc decide everything, or you can take charge of it yourself. Okay? Do your own research. Or take some of the research that I've done and borrow it and use that as a jumping off point. So this is called polytherapy. So when I was diagnosed, I started reading, I started talking to doctors. I realized it was no one doctor was going to help walk me through this. I needed a team of doctors. So I put together a team of doctors to help me. And that team consisted of my general practitioner, my family doctor. He made a referral to a radiological oncologist. I had an oncologist, okay? I had radiation therapy. And I also had 3 functional medicine doctors, a nutritional coach, 2 chiropractors, and 2 pastors. Because, like I said, well, like my oncologist, I was having a consultation with him, and he talked about radiation therapy and what all that entailed, and you know, quite detailed. We had a lot of questions. He had a lot of answers. One of my questions was, while I go through this radiation, are there any nutritional considerations I need to make? And his response was, well, you know, research 1 year shows one thing, a couple years later it contradicts it. So, it's like, oh, really? Okay. Well, I'll never ask you a question like that again. So it wasn't in his lane. I didn't lose respect for the guy. He knew what he knew. And now I understood what he didn't know. So I had to go to another doctor who could help direct me in that area. So this is what doctors do. And when I spoke with a lot of doctors over the past couple of years that had cancer themselves, and this is exactly what they did. So we're going to go through some of these topics. And again, each one of these could be quite a long seminar. So environmental toxins, dirty food. We tried to bring you some cleaner food today. But if half the meals that you eat are handed to you through a drive-through window, that's not food. I've seen the list of ingredients of a strawberry milkshake from a fast food restaurant. It's huge. It's a huge list. Most of the words you cannot pronounce, but there's 2 things missing from the list of ingredients. There's no milk and no strawberries. It's frankenfood. How can you create a healthy you with eating dirty food? You have to eat clean. Dirty water. A lot of people they don't drink water at all, any kind of water. You know, when they're thirsty, what that means is, you know, sweet tea or an energy drink or Pepsi or so forth. But when you're thirsty, your body's asking for water. The doctor that was my nutritional coach, she said, no more tap water, no more ice. I was like, why? She said, there's a lot of things in there, like chlorine and fluorine that are just not going to be good for you right now. So we put in a filter under our sink. It's reverse osmosis water. It means there's a series of filters, big holes, smaller holes, smaller holes, smaller holes, and then what comes out of the little tap on the sink is just H2O. The majority of what crosses your lips during the day should be water. Dirty air with pet dander, dust mites, this is the low country, mold, and indoor air can get very, very polluted. So even before this, we knew this, we understood this. So we have a really, really good air purifier, an air filter and we have it in the office and in the house to clean out the air. The thing works amazingly. If you cook bacon at night and run that filter in the morning, you don't smell bacon at all. It's amazing. And then dirty products, sprays, cleaners, cosmetics, paints, pesticides. If it were just 1, 2, or even 20 exposures a day, but it's not. There's 120 million new industrial chemicals that has not existed on the planet before. And most of these chemicals do not biodegrade, they bioaccumulate. Does that make sense? And most of them are fat soluble. So when you ingest them, you don't get rid of them, you don't pass them out, they get stored in your fat. Okay? And this is one of the problems when people go on a rapid weight loss program. They lose a lot of fat, lose a lot of pounds in a short period of time. They're dumping that toxic burden into their system very rapidly, more so than their body can handle it. And that can cause cancer or heart disease or kidney failure. It happens quite often. So I took a test. I did a test that measured for all these chemicals, phthalates, styrenes, parabens, benzenes, and to see what was in my system. And I had stuff. And then the next job is to look at the ingredient labels. Look at what's in your laundry detergent, your cleaning products, your fabric softeners. What are you spraying on your yard? And there's also a website you can go to, put in the name of your deodorant, and it'll show you what toxic chemicals are in there and what sort of risk they pose to your health. You can look it up. It's just that easy. I've had this test done. I saw what was in my system. I cleaned it up. We started cleaning up the products in our house and in the office, because I don't know everything that's going on with the health of our patients, and I didn't want to put an additional burden on them. And I had this retested to see if my efforts were productive. And actually, it was maybe 2 weeks ago, I redid a bunch of tests plus a couple of additional tests. And one of my functional medicine doctors has been doing this for 30 years. He said it was one of the best tests he's seen. But I could mess it up again. I absolutely can. So moving on. And here's another toxin. And it may not seem like a toxin to you, but sugar is a toxin. Sugar and grains. Grains is a simple carb. This is wheat, oats, corn, and rice. Those are simple carbs. Simple means it's one step from a carb to a sugar. And there's digestive enzymes in your saliva that break it down before you swallow it. So it turns to sugar. Very toxic, causes a lot of inflammation. Vegetable oil, peanut oil, seed oils. They're considered rancid oils. These are really, really unhealthy. This is another thing we did. We know this list. It's sort of important till you get a diagnosis. Then it's really important. It's always really important. So we started cleaning out the cabinets. We'd have a full bottle of something. We're like, it's got to go. It's got to go. So coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, those are all very, very good. Common allergens, casein, gluten, real common. I had a food sensitivity test done to see if I had some, allergens to something that is maybe not an unhealthy food, but for whatever reason, my immune system gets flared up for it. And I was a little bit anxious when I had this test done. But there were just two things I was mildly sensitive to: gluten and almonds. So it was mildly sensitive, which means I can still have it, just not every day. Just not every day. And this is something that changes over time. and cortisol from stress or poor sleep. So there's a lot of hands thrown up about stress. Is there anybody in the room, show of hands, that routinely sleeps well through the night, wakes up in the morning, most mornings, remember that they've dreamed and are awake and alert in the morning? Raise your hand if that's commonly you. I expected one hand or two, right? So stress and poor sleep is a big deal. I just recently taken, there's a test that you can do. It's a saliva test, and 4 times a day, you collect saliva in a test tube, freeze it, send it into the lab. They measure all kinds of hormones and chemicals, cortisol, melatonin, DHEA, to see if you're having some challenges to getting deep restorative sleep. And the indicator for inflammation is C-reactive protein. That's a protein your liver makes in response to widespread inflammation. Inflammation is widespread in our population, but the question is it widespread in you? The reason this test is so important, because research says it has a causal role in carcinogenesis. It creates cancer. This is huge. So, sugar feeds cancer. There was a fellow, Dr. Warburg, won a Nobel Prize in figuring this out in like 1939 or something like that. Part of what he found out was cancer cells are glucose metabolizers. The only fuel that cancer cells can use to grow is fermenting sugar. That's it. Nobel Prize for that information. And it's not new information. Sugar raises insulin levels. We know this. It's a major source of inflammation. It's an anti-nutrient. When there's a bunch of sugar floating around, nutrients can't get in the cells. Toxins can't get out of the cells. The cells become hypoxic, means too little oxygen, and it turns into cancer. This is how it works. Have any of you heard of someone that's been diagnosed with cancer? They're early on, and the doctors say, we need to do a PET scan to locate your cancer. Have you, show of hands, heard of that? Positronic emission tomography is what that means. And what they do is they give you an injection of sugar water, and attached to the sugar molecule is a radioactive tracer. And they put you in a very fancy Geiger counter, okay? And that sugar water that's attached to a radioactive tracer circulates to your system, and it goes straight to your cancer. And on the machine, it lights it up. It gives them a picture of where your cancer is. Because cancer cells are sugar metabolizers. Their metabolism is rapid, fast-growing cells. But here's the thing with sugar and cancer. If you're not having a PET scan and you just have a cookie, it also goes straight to feed your cancer. If you're having ice cream, the sugar in the ice cream goes straight to feed the cancer. And sweet tea. So if you've been diagnosed with cancer, or there's cancer in your family, sugar's a no-no. Another show of hands. Be honest, who in this room is addicted to sugar? Every hand should go up. Every hand. We're all addicted because it's put in everything, because it sells, because we are addicted. Okay. And then there's diet and nutrient sufficiency. You think it's not going to be you, but you can't live that way. You have to eat clean and not the standard American diet. It's kind of like your car, right? Your car requires gasoline. But if you don't put gasoline in it, if you put kerosene because it's cheap and convenient, is your car going to run well? No, absolutely not. And cheap and convenient should not be the criteria for the kind of food, the kind of fuel that you put in your body. You can't break it down properly, and it'll eventually cause you to break down. So There's tons of studies on this, and this is something that we hand out with patients. The Mediterranean diet. You've heard of the Mediterranean diet. We're not going to discuss the details of that, but just changing from the standard American diet to, and this is not true for everyone. Actually, my wife and I, for a period of time, some years ago, did the keto thing, right? And then I had some genetic testing done, and I had a genetic poor ability to break down and digest fat. So a keto diet is not good for me. And we weren't having that much success. I know other people do. So again, that's another test that could be done to see what is the best, diet, what's the best nutrition for you. Cuts the cancer risk in half, which is great. That's a huge amount. So again, as far as nutrient sufficiency, vitamin D. Most people know their cholesterol number. How many of you guys know your vitamin D number? Yeah. One of the first things my doctor said to me once I was diagnosed, he said, we got to check your vitamin D. One of the first things. And it was okay. It was within the normal range. There's the normal range, but you can be in the normal range and be very close to abnormal, okay? So there is the optimal range. My doctor wanted me on the high end of optimal. But here's where the research, and it's involved in, there are over 900 genes that code for vitamin D use. It's involved in a lot of stuff. Well, there was a study done out of the State University of New York that found within a few days, half the cancer cells shriveled up and died. The vitamin has the same effect as a drug used for breast cancer treatment. Vitamin D is as good as chemotherapy, according to this study, because it can't break down vitamin D. Vitamin D is toxic to cancer cells. Vitamin C also is toxic. So I check my vitamin D regularly. And it fluctuates, but when it drops down a little bit, maybe I skip a day or two, I try to double up, but I test it. You don't know unless you test it. Loved this chart. The numbers at the top are your vitamin D levels, blood levels. And if it's around 30, usually on most tests, if it's above 30, your doctor says it's good. On the lab report, it won't say L or H, normal. So that means you have almost a 0% chance of getting rickets. That one thing, rickets. My doctor wanted mine up at 90 because at higher levels, it decreases your chance for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, colon cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, even diabetes, falls, multiple sclerosis, kidney disease, endometrial cancer. It's so simple to check, and it's so easy to get to that optimal range, and it's incredibly inexpensive. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Again, this is one of the facets, regardless of what other kind of care, maybe it's appropriate for a loved one or yourself to have the chemo, the radiation, the surgery, or whatever. It's not like you can only do that, you can't do this. Do all of it that's appropriate for you. So we test this on almost 100% of our patients in the office. We check their vitamin D levels, and depending on what it is, we make recommendations on how much they take for themselves to get in the optimal range, and then we check it again to be sure they're there, to be sure they follow instructions also. And also the CRP. And it's amazing how elevated these can be in our patient base. And it's not unusual for an inflammation level to be off the chart, beyond what the test can measure. This is a big concern. This is the reason we check it. And stress. We talked about this. You knew we were getting to this. we like to blame stress. You know, the ultimate cause of all ill health is stress, right? You've heard this. We've said this. But that's not right, because if it's stress, then they're to blame and you're a helpless victim. It's stress. It's them. It's their fault. It's stress. You know, it's the government. It's my family, you know, or the list goes on. But it's not stress. It's stress that's beyond your ability to cope. Now, when you understand that that's the case, then that gives you power to change your ability to cope. This is how you can change your ability to cope. You've heard exercise helps to alleviate stress. Okay? Just, you know what the best kind of exercise to do is? Whatever you will do. I mean, fine tune it later. It's just something. Something. It really doesn't matter. And chances are, it's what you have enjoyed doing in your youth. Okay. Now, I enjoy playing soccer. I can't do that no more. Okay. But for me, it's bike riding. I love bike riding, you know. So you're more likely to do what you've enjoyed in your past, and maybe not to the same intensity. Rest, we talked about rest. That's just downtime. Quality sleep helps your healing capabilities. A cleaner diet, we touched on that. Quiet time, prayer time, meditation. A spiritual connection is so important. I guess the modern way to put that is mindfulness, but nah, it's prayer. That's prayer is what it is. So not handling stress or stress that's beyond your ability to cope, it affects your energy, it increases inflammation, reduces your immune system, raises your blood pressure, it can cause brain fog, disrupts your hormone balance, and it makes you fat. That's what stress does to you. This was one of, they're pointing fingers on the back row. Yeah. I'm not going to ask it which one of those things, but this was one of my big issues. I'm self-employed. Anybody self-employed in here? Does that alone cause stress? Be self-employed. You'll have it made. Okay? So I'm self-employed. I've had ongoing knee problems, chronic pain that eventually led to surgery. 2 brothers battling cancer. We have a big family. We're very close. And in August of 2021, my dog died. He was an inside dog. He was very, very old, you know, increasing health problems. We had to put him down. That same week, I got a severe, near fatal case of COVID. I had a weakened immune system. I didn't realize it. Within a week, I got a phone call. My dad died. It's in August of 21. The next month, I was diagnosed with cancer. You know, got to get a handle on stress. I was overwhelmed. You've often, I'm sure, have felt overwhelmed. So again, it's not stress. It's a diminished ability to cope with stress. And you guys, there's some of these fronts, some of these avenues of attack that you might be good at, okay? And you may not need a lot of work in every area we're talking about. But if you are good in certain areas, like eating clean, whatever it may be, congratulations, great. But there are some areas that maybe you need work. And then the nervous system. You maybe have not seen a picture of this guy. This is D.D. Palmer. He was the father of chiropractic. He discovered chiropractic in 1895, in September of 1895. And this was one of his quotes. This was how he looked at things. There's a vast difference between treating the effect and adjusting the cause. Isn't that what we're talking about? He went on to say, I desire to know why one person was ailing and his associate, eating at the same table, working at the same shop, at the same bench, was not. Why? What's the difference? What difference was there in these 2 persons that caused one to have various diseases while his partner to escape? Again, this conversation is not just about cancer, it's about ill health, however you label it. So that was his quest. And we've all known people that smoked cigars and drank, 3 shots of whiskey right before bed and ate whatever he wanted and lived to be 103, right? And then there's another person that's a competitive runner, very lean, and everybody would look at him or her and go, wow, they're really in shape. And then they drop over a heart attack at 47. Why is that? What's the difference? It's the nervous system. This is what D.D. Palmer was looking at. And this has been studied for a long time. Famous couple, Siamese twins, conjoined twins. They were born in Russia, and I believe it was 1950. They were joined at the lower part of the spine. They had separate lungs, they had separate hearts, but they shared a circulatory system. The circulatory system was connected. But they had separate nervous systems, separate brain, separate spinal cord. And so these conjoined twins were studied a lot. And one would get a cold and the other one didn't. One would get the flu and the other one didn't. One got measles and the other one didn't. One had a tendency for depression and to be very moody and would cuss and drank. When one drank, the other one got drunk. So they studied these, and what they found out, the difference was, they were both exposed to bacteria, to viruses. They were conjoined. They lived the same life, but they were two different people because of the nervous system. The nervous system is what helps you cope and adapt to the environment. Your nervous system is everything. And it's the missing link that a lot of people just don't get. It's the key ingredient, and not just for your health, for your thoughts, for your emotions, your feelings, goals, aspirations, for healing, for hormone regulation, for everything. So, you may not have heard this, but research shows that everybody grows about 10,000 cancer cells every day. The truth is, we all have cancer. But we also have the ability to kill cancer cells. And that chemical is called interleukin-2. And your nervous system, through your immune system, controls this innate cancer-killing system. And what research has found, and this was, I think it was 2010, that chiropractic adjustments temporarily influence interleukin-2 regulated biological response following a single adjustment. They've done similar studies many times in different ways, and they have found consistently that chiropractic adjustments increase the strength of your immune system. This is why I had 2 chiropractors, okay? So, here's the list. You got to avoid or eliminate toxins, okay? And how do you know which ones you have? You get it tested. We test this in our office. Those patients that are interested in it, we do this test. Very easy test, a very detailed test. And if you do have some of these toxins, again, it's easy enough to find out where you're exposed to them. And it may not be from a current exposure. Again, they're fat soluble. Maybe you had a job 20 years ago in a nasty environment, and so you're just carrying around this toxic burden from then. So you have to work on ways to detox. And then have it checked again to be sure you're successful. Change your diet and your nutrition. If you do what everybody else does, you'll have what everybody else has. You can't do that. You can't do that. Have you heard shopping the perimeter of the grocery store when it comes to foods? The stuff in the middle with a long list of ingredients and a long shelf life, there's ingredients in there that did not exist on the planet till they came up with that certain food product. The foods around the perimeter of the grocery store have a short list of ingredients. On a side of a bag of broccoli, what does it say the list of ingredients is? That's it. That's it. And they have a short shelf life because bacteria see them as having a lot of nutrients that the bacteria can live on, so they spoil. So the shorter the shelf life, the more nutrition is in. That's a general rule of thumb. So shopping the perimeter of the grocery store. And exercise. And what kind of exercise is best? Whatever you'll do. Yes. Reduce your stress. There are ways to reduce your stress. How many of you have ever been asked to serve on a committee and just said no? Yeah. Yeah, it felt great. Okay. Now you can't say no to the people in this room. Okay. Okay. There's been period of times when I've said yes to way too many things and spread myself thin. I'm not doing that now. And do those things that help you cope with stress that we talked about. And then get your nervous system checked. Okay? You know, and the other thing that I didn't put up here, I struggled. When I got this diagnosis, you know, I had resources. I knew people. I knew things. And I said, I got to take charge of this thing. Maybe this was you. Maybe this was a loved one. But there were several conversations in doctor's offices, or maybe it's over the phone, and it was very difficult news. And I looked at my wife's face. I was like, man, I got to work on this. You know, it gets really serious. And I wanted to do everything. I was talking to one of my doctors on my team, and they said something very, very important. They said, your lack of understanding or lack of taking action or doing something to fight this has no more power than God's plan. Whatever path He wants you to walk through, it's going to happen. Okay? So you can't have the feeling like I did, like I can't miss anything. I got to do everything. I can't miss anything. You don't have that much control. God does. So, like I said at the beginning, I really do not want this time that we spend to be simply informational. You know, they say half the battle is showing up. You know what the other half is? Taking action, doing something. So in just a little bit, I'm going to give you an opportunity to take action on what you're doing. Because if you don't, 6 months from now or a year from now, somebody close to you gets a diagnosis, whether it's cancer or heart disease, and then you remember this and like, I should have told him, or I should have done something, and you hadn't. That's a burden that I don't want for you. So you've got to take action. So in just a minute, there's an opportunity I'm going to share with you to have some of these tests done, to look at some of the most important things, to find out exactly how your body is functioning, to see if you're at risk. So these things that I was doing to help fight cancer, and just to share, my doctor say I'm cancer-free, but can it come back? What you have to do to get rid of it is the same thing you have to do to not get it or to keep from getting it again. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But before we close, I brought a guest who has been down a long health journey and has addressed these health concerns in various ways. And this is something that he has shared individually with a few people, but I don't think ever with a group. So he's going to tell you his story about this. And so, Pastor George, could you just share your understanding of what we've just been talking about?
Gladly. Many of you may know me or know my family. I grew up here in Hampton. My mom worked at Hampton County Bank, then she worked for Dr. Pulaski, and then she worked for Welker. She still works for Welker. But I grew up here, went to Wade Hampton High School, went off to the Citadel. My freshman year at the Citadel was 1989, and we had something come through, a little storm by the name of, anybody remember? Hugo. Well, they evacuated the city, and before they were letting residents or anyone else in, the National Guard was there, State Patrol, they brought all the cadets back. And instead of giving us rifles, what would you imagine they gave us? Well, they gave us, first off, they gave us shovels, they gave us buckets, wheelbarrows, and we went house to house in downtown Charleston shoveling mud and fish and all that out of buildings. And with all that going on there, we were on campus sleeping at the Citadel, but one night the water would taste like pine trees. The next day it might taste like pluff mud smells. The next day it might taste like nothing, like water. So it was really, I guess Russian roulette with the water we were getting. And after a storm such as Hugo, when there was 20-something feet of water on the peninsula of Charleston, you can understand some of that. We were not drinking bottled water. They were giving us water out of. So anyway, during my time at the Citadel, I got sick. You do a lot of physical fitness training. It got to the point that I could come back and I could do this to my shorts and wring blood out of them. For 3 years in the Army, because after the Citadel, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia. I was in the United States Army. For 3 years and over 30 doctors, they couldn't find out what was going on with me. And it was continuing. I was sick. 30 doctors thought I had cancer. No tests would come back showing it anywhere. They ran tests like you said. Can't find cancer, but something's going on. At the time, I'd never heard of Crohn's disease back in the early 90s. But now a lot of people, you hear of it a lot. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I was given a medical discharge from the United States military. Because there was no FDA-approved drug back then for Crohn's. So they start with steroids, and they started with an intestinal antibiotic called Flagyl. And then when that doesn't work, they put you on chemotherapy. And so the military deemed me non-deployable, so I was medically discharged. I spent, February would have been 29 years. I spent 1 month shy of 29 years on chemotherapy. 1 month shy of 29 years on chemotherapy, a drug that hinders your immune system. It suppresses your immune system because Crohn's is a disease of the autoimmune system that causes your body to attack its digestive tract anywhere. Man, in the early stage when I would have 40, 50 ulcers in my mouth at one time. It was hard to eat. It was hard to breathe, and nothing would make them go away. When I started the chemo, my Crohn's went in remission. So there's a good thing. Crohn's went into remission. I was able to live life. Just months before Dr. Ray got COVID, I got COVID that almost killed me. But the reason it hit me harder than my wife and my daughters, my sons, was because my immune system is non-existent. I got plasma that had antibodies against COVID, and I got well after 7 days in the hospital. Well, this past Christmas, I got sick, like with just the flu. And every one of you have a virus that you're exposed to on a daily basis. It's probably in your body right now, but your immune system keeps things at check, just like cancer cells are being produced in every one of our bodies, but your immune system keeps things at check. Well, because my immune system was so suppressed, I was on chemo, and I'd just been fighting the flu. I got the virus, there's 2 of them that I had that you're exposed to probably in your body. One of them is called Epstein-Barr, and the other is called CMV, cytomegalovirus. Both of them are responsible. Have you ever heard of the kissing disease, mono? Mm-hmm. People in high school, where they'd get it and they would be out of school for weeks. I had both of them. I had 103.5 fever for 4 weeks straight. Went into the hospital. My wife was actually coming to Hampton, and my son called her and said, "Mom, you need to go see Dad. He is incoherent." She came, my blood oxygen was down to like 85, and my fever was 103.5. She took me to the ER. They took me in, and this is in Beaufort, and they ran all kinds of tests. They didn't know what was going on. They thought I was septic. So they called in infectious disease control. Infectious disease, this wonderful young doctor, her name was Erica Yerkaba. She ran, she said, "I think he has this." And she was dead on. And she ran and she said, "You actually have both of them." And I'm going to tell you, I woke up on that Sunday morning in the hospital. My wife was asking me for where the insurance papers were, because the doctors told her my organs were starting to shut down. 103.5 for so many days, your body just can't. So, she was asking me that. While I was in the hospital, I came off of chemotherapy. Well, so they send me home, controlling best we could the fever for 3 more weeks, whatever, with, meds. And they put me on an antiviral. Well, CMV can infect your eyes. I lost the vision in my left eye. They said it will usually affects both eyes. By the way, the right eye didn't affect until like 6 weeks ago. My right eye, I lost the vision of that. My left eye is completely back. My right eye is probably 90% back now. But anyway, they said there's nothing we can do except get your immune system jump-started. I've been on chemo for 29 years. What do? I go to Dr. Ray. When he was sick with COVID, I drove he and Miss Ronnie to Mount Pleasant. And they got an infusion. It was vitamins and stuff. And when I drove them there, they could hardly hold their heads up. And when they came out of that office, and they talked the whole way back to Varnville. I'm there. He sees me. We leave. He calls and says, "Can you go to Charleston tomorrow?" I go to Charleston. They give me an infusion of a lot of vitamins. With the Crohn's, I was not absorbing vitamins in my gut that I really needed. They give me an infusion with vitamins, but they made it an immunity jumpstart infusion. And I did that 7 months. I went every month and got an infusion. Anyway, the doctor said you won't have your vision back for at least, probably it'd be August. Within 2 months, I had vision back. And he was like, "What's going on?" Stuff that he put in my system, my immune system jump-started so much so that it was immediately helping to heal all of that. But having a suppressed immune system for 29 years, and now it's all of a sudden in hyper gear, there are issues. So in the short term, I was getting the infusions, but he ran some tests on me because we need to figure out long term, because we don't want to get back on chemo or anything for Crohn's disease. So he ran some tests, and we found out my immune system, now that it was very, very hyperactive from the infusions, was responding to any food that is a natural histamine. My level was like exponentially higher. I'm not talking about just high. I'm talking about like thousands of times high. It was exponential. And so at that time, I again, guess what? Because I'm not on chemo, the ulcers had returned. I had a mouthful, it was probably 20 ulcers in my mouth. We go in, he has the results. He says, "I want you to change your diet to this." He lists what I can't have, and I'm like, "What can I have?" Because the list is short. Within 4 days, every single ulcer was gone. Every ulcer was gone. My gastroenterologists and them, they're like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah." I'm like, "Do the blood work." I'm telling you, I've been on the diet since like March or April. April. I've had to take up, and not unhealthy, I've had to put extra holes in my belt. Throw away clothes. I can wear clothes that I've been saving for 15 years that my wife tried to get me to throw away, but I was too fat to wear. I feel better. I am on no meds for Crohn's. When I had COVID, I came out of the hospital. They accidentally double dosed me with steroids. I came out of the hospital with a 600 blood sugar level. They put me on insulin. I am off of insulin. I am off of Crohn's medicine. You see me up here living and breathing, and I'm fit. I do whatever I want. And I believe that God has given us a body that when we put the correct things in it, it does. I'm not going to tell you that there's never a time for meds. There's time you have to have meds. But I'm telling you, if you, some of the habits of the things here, remove some of the toxins and exercise and diet properly. And I'm not saying to exercise, you don't have to go run a 5K and do this. I cut grass, do yard work, do woodwork, fish, I work at a hunting club. Just those things, if you do them and don't take the easy way out on all of them, and sweat, and that's exercise. I mean, you think about my great-grandmother lived 2 months shy of her 100th birthday. She never rode a bike or ran a race in her life. You know, she exercised by feeding the chickens and taking care of the animals and cleaning up and all that. But if you do those things, but I have to tell you, with all of that, one of the biggest factor, I'm a minister, so I'll tell you, was in all of that. And you can ask, Jake, you can ask, stress bothers me very, very little. I told our church just recently, Scripture teaches us that we're not to worry over anything, be anxious over anything, but in prayer and supplication, make your desires be known to God with thanksgiving, and He will, give you the peace that surpasses human understanding in Christ Jesus. The word in Scripture for worry is the same exact word for concern. Worry is harmful. You've heard of, anybody in here ever heard of the Mayo Clinic? The guy that started the Mayo Clinic said he'd never seen anyone who prolonged their life or added years to their life through anything, but he had seen people who had died from worry. He really said, and some people, you can say, you hear them saying, they'll worry themselves to death. They will start to have physical issues just from worry. Well, worry is harmful to the body. Stress is harmful. But that's when you take it on your shoulders and you try to do everything yourself. Concern in Scripture, the same exact word, but it's different context, is not bad for you, and it's not sinful. Concern is where you should have concern over things. Oh, my wife has this. I should have concern of that. But it's where I say, Lord, I can't do this, and I turn it over to you, and I trust you. And then the stress level goes down. And I was fortunate enough, Dr. Ray did ask me to be a part of his team. And so I spent mornings praying with him and all that. And I know his stress level did come down as he did stuff, because this is huge. You have to do the toxins, you have to do all that, but this is huge. Don't worry over anything. I might get excited for something for a few minutes, but usually within 15 minutes, I'm like, man, it's not even, not worth it. So I tell you, today, I have been off of chemo since the day I went into the hospital, my birthday, January 10th of this year. I have been off of insulin. I am on none of that. The only thing, I'm taking some natural supplements and some things that his office has, put me on, helping with some of the gut enzymes and bacteria and so forth. And I've changed my diet. And I've had people, and I know you, time's over, but I've had people say, "Oh, what diet are you on?" Because you were in the recliner dead for, guys, I couldn't go up and go to the bathroom without needing a 4-hour nap. My body was so weak. I couldn't walk from here to that door without having to sit down for 20 minutes. When you're in the hospital and you're that sick for that long a time, your body just can't. I got up and was doing everything. People said, what did you do? What diet are you? I said, I can't tell you what diet I'm on, because this diet was done specifically from my blood, from testing my systems. But I said, I can tell you what test. Who does go see for some test run? And I just want you to know that my life has changed for the better. And You know, I'm living. You can talk to my wife. Heather, you can ask her. My mom and dad, George and Olivia Skinner, you can ask them. They'll tell you that it's changed. And you know, you didn't see me come grab a roll. You didn't see me grab stuff because my particular diet is very strict. I can't sweet tea. I can't have not just sugar. I can't have tea. So my diet has changed, and it takes work because I can't hardly go to a restaurant and find things that I can eat in a lot of instances. But
Is it worth it, Pastor George?
I would do it, and I would recommend anyone because.
It's a good trade-off.
Amen. Amen. It's a trade-off. You know, this is the option. I could make those changes, or I could start the chemo again to suppress my immune system so that my immune system isn't attacking my body when I eat those things. And I'm going to tell you, I just feel so much better doing it naturally, holistically, and so that's my story. I've never really told people the whole deal. A lot of people, they'd say, we never would have known you were on chemo. And I was like, well, that's not what defines me. I didn't go sit in a recliner and say, oh, woe is me. I did life. And, you know, no, we all have problems in our lives. But we don't, some of us wear them on our sleeve, some people don't. We don't have to wear them on our sleeve. And I never have. But it's real. It's, you know, the chemo. You read the list of any medicine side effect. I took the chemo leukemia patients take. You know what a side effect of that chemo is? Cancer. So the medicine they give to cancer patients causes cancer. You know, and everything. So I'm appreciative for having the opportunity to tell my story. It's made a difference to me to have all those drugs out of my system and to just own some natural supplements. And to change my diet to eating things that my body can handle, and it's made a total difference. And I get adjusted regularly as well. And I'll throw this out there. It used to be I've had 2 surgeries. I've got fused vertebra, 3 vertebrae fused together in my neck. If I cut firewood, it used to be I would be laid up for 30 days. I would go cut firewood 3 days in a row now, and I might be a little sore, but I can do life. I can be a father, I can be a grandfather, I can be the husband, I can be who I'm meant to be by taking care of my body. And so as a team, he's big time on my team of helping take care of my body. So thank you. If anybody of you have any questions about all of that, I'd be glad to answer any of it. So thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yep.
Isn't he an inspiration? Before we close, I'll tell you a quick story. Have any of you heard the story about the mother zebra? No? All right. There was a mother zebra out on the plains. She just gave birth to a baby zebra. She leans over, nudges the baby zebra, and said, come on, baby, you got to get up. And the baby zebra lays there and said, oh, Mom, I just got here. You know, just kind of just relax a little bit. And the mother zebra leans down, nudges again, and said, come on, baby, you got to get up. You got to walk. I said, oh, but Mama, the sunshine is so nice. The breeze, it smells so good. And look at the birds. It's beautiful. Can I just relax here for a little bit? And the mother zebra leans down again and said, come on, baby, you got to get up and run. And the baby zebra says, why? Why do I got to run? I said, because you don't understand. The lions are coming, and they're going to eat you. You got to get up and run now. Sounds kind of cute. But, you know, we don't have lions coming after us. But we do have cancer. We have heart disease. We have autoimmune diseases, kidney diseases. And they are coming after us. And it can be fatal, as much as a lion attack is fatal. The time is to act is now. You can't just think, well, it'll be all right. It won't happen to me. It'll happen to someone else, but not me. Because with all those hands I saw at the beginning of this, it has already happened to our families, if not ourselves personally. So this is a gift I want to leave with y'all. These tests that we were talking about, that also George mentioned, some of the most important tests that we do in our office that I have done for me on a regular basis is the vitamin D CRP test. It's one of the first most valuable basic bits of information. The testing and the chiropractic evaluation to evaluate the nervous system function normally costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $565. Because of this chamber event, and you guys went out of your way to rearrange your schedule this evening to be here, we'll do this test for $150. Now, there's some federal insurance programs that have rules that if you have a federal insurance program, they won't allow us to do that. But if not that, there is a survey that you can take, this twin survey. It stands for the Wellness Indicator Network. This is an online free survey that you can take about your health. It asks you a series of multiple choice questions about how many hours do you typically sleep? Do you wake up rested and energetic? Do you have to have coffee to get going? Do you have a mid-afternoon slump? Do you crave sugar and chocolate? It asks questions about brain fog and so on and so forth. These are research-based questions that shed light on a potential functional issue within your body. So we have a QR code that you can scan. You can take this online, and then the results get sent to me. I'll go over the results. You can come in for a report. I'll let you know exactly what your answers suggest about your health and what your potential risks are, and make recommendations. And there's no charge for that either. So I guess you do have the option of doing nothing. I would not recommend it. So at least take one step. Because I would just love for everyone in this room to have a similar transformational story as Pastor George did. That's why I get up every morning. That's why I study as much as I do. And I think that's part of the reason that I got cancer to begin with, is so I would gain some knowledge to share with you, to have an impact on your life. But it's not just your life, it's your family tree. And that's so important. So I've got this QR code up here. You can scan it with your phone. If you want to take advantage of this offer, you can talk to Miss Amanda or Miss Ronnie. I'm not going to be in a rush to get out of here. I know you guys have a schedule, got things to do. But before we close, any questions? Well, I could not have done such a good job that I've answered every question. So if you have a question later and you want to just pick up the phone and have a conversation, please don't hesitate doing that. If there's any way that I can help or steer you to someone that can help, I'd be more than glad to. Thank you for your time.
Y'all, please take an umbrella. These are left over from one of our giveaway things, and the rain is a-coming this week. So we have umbrellas up there if y'all care for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.